Hello everyone. Today I'm just going to show you how we do reading in the kindergarten classroom. So first of all I want to explain that we have two different types of texts. We have one that's called decodable texts, which have small sight words in there, plus the words in there are words that the children can sound out. So they're decodable, meaning that they can sound out the words. The other texts that we have are predictive texts. These are stories that the children can read, and there's a lot of words in here. So they have sight words, they have words they can sound out, and also they have words that they can predict. Predicting, so I'll give you an example of what's meant by that, is on this page it says little chimp is going up and down. So the children might need a prompt on little, but they'll know that that's little, they'll know the next word is chimp because they know the stories about little chimp. After a while they'll get to recognise this word, and then they'll be reading is going up because they can sound up out, and they can know that if he's going up he's probably going up and down. That's a word that they would predict. Starts with a D, what makes sense, up and down. They wouldn't be able to sound this word out because right now in kindergarten they don't know that OW sounds like owl. So they make it a guess, a prediction. Now I'm going to show you, next I'll show you how to orientate the text, that's introduce the text to the children, and also what to do to help them, prompt them with their reading. Okay, little chimp and big chimp. When you're introducing a new book to children, it's important to just go through, maybe not all the book, but a part of the book to help them get the story of what's going to be happening. So it's orientation, so that they have an idea of what's happening in the text. Often when we introduce these texts, we talk about the problem in the text first. So we go through the book and we have a look and see what's happening. So we'd be saying here, oh look, little chimp, he's up in the trees. He's having a real lot of fun. He's going up and down and he's really enjoying himself. Oh, but look here, here's big chimp. So you're giving the name. And little chimp's coming, I wonder what's going to happen. And there's little chimp, he's having such a great time going up and down in the trees. But then, uh-oh, he comes down on big chimp. I'm wondering what big chimp's going to do. Do you think little chimp's going to be in trouble? Let's read and see. So that's an orientation. So, and then you might say to them, if in this book, that word there says down. Can you find down on another page? So they might skip through the book. So they're just learning to look for that word. They might not remember it when they're reading it, but the thing is what it's doing is helping them learn to scan a text and identify words. So then they would look on this page, oh look, there's down, oh there's down again. So they can look for those words. And there's down with a capital letter, it looks a little bit different. You might need to point that one out to them. Okay, after you've done that, then the child can start to read. So in these early texts, we make sure that they put their finger underneath each word. So they would read it like this. Little chimp is going up in the tree. What we want to do is see their finger pointing under each word as they read, not on top, because they can't see the word. It needs to be underneath. Not pointing in the gaps, it needs to be underneath each word, and try really hard to get them to use what we call a crisp pointing finger, because this sort of is really not showing that they know that that chunk of letters S is little. So what we want to do is really get that pointing underneath each word. When beginning reading, you might, if they don't know a word, wait. Give them a little wait. Give them a chance to remember or have a go and think about what that word is. If it's a word that can be sounded out, you might say, what can you do to work out what that word says. And then they might say, sound it out. We'll have a go at sounding it out. You can do that, but it's really important to give that pause before you prompt, because you don't want to give them every word, especially if they can work it out for themselves. In this text, if they didn't know it started with little, you could say something like, who's the story about? And they could say, oh, little chimp. Well, what do you think that word says? Little. Otherwise, just give them the word. Just say, that word says little. Don't say little chimp, because they'll get chimp correct. So you'll say that word says little, and then they'll go little chimp is, and they might not know going. You can say there's a little word there, or you can just give it to them. But as long as it's after they've had a little bit of time to have a think about, do I know this word or not? Better to give the word to them so that they can continue reading. Little chimp is going, and they might know up, in the trees. They'll guess trees, because they know, they can see, because of the orientation that you've done, they can see that he's playing in the trees. And then little chimp is going, so you can see the text repeats itself. So that is helpful for them to be able to remember, if you've given them going on this page, that they'll get going on this page. Little chimp is going up and down. They'll be able to sound that word out, give them a break. Then you would say the word is big if you need to tell them. So then they'll know big chimp is, and they might not know, they might say sleeping, because they're looking at the picture, and so what they're saying, they're showing their understanding of meaning, but you'll say he's not sleeping, he's asleep. Have a look and see how it starts. So you're reminding them that next time when they read this book, they'll say asleep rather than sleeping. In the, and they can sound sun out. And anyway, you just keep prompting like that. So the best prompt that you can do is give them a pause and then say, what can you do to work that word out? And then if it's here and they say sound it out, and you know that they can't sound here out, just say the word is here. And then they can keep going. Another common word in these readers is comes. So you might get them to put the first sound in their mouth. First sound, what's the first sound? What would make sense? So there's some simple prompts that you can give them, but don't stress and struggle over it. If they don't know the word and they've had a bit of a try, because it's the trying part that's important, just give them the word, so that next time when they reread this book to you as a familiar text, the whole purpose of it is to be a smooth reader, read the way a newsreader would read. So they're building their fluency. So, and every time they read this book, those tricky words like down and going will be repeated so that they have a visual memory of those words, and they'll maybe know them better next time when they read them in another book. When you finish reading this story, and we talked about how, I wonder if he's going to get into trouble, and then you see what happens at the end of the book. Little chimp is up in the big tree, saying big chimp doesn't even know what's happened. You can say something like, what happened in the end, and so they can just tell you, just a quick little comprehension. So that's how you do a predictive text. Now, the decodable texts are fairly self-explanatory. You have simple sight words, my. It's really the child needs to know that word, because they don't know that the Y sounds like an I at the end of a small word, but they can sound these words out. Her, at, to, hat. So the most important thing about when you're working with children when they're sounding out words is they don't sound each individual sound and keep them spread apart. So they don't go, the first of all, they might go her, to. Her, to. What you need to encourage them to do is push the sounds together so that they run. So it's hat, hat. So they're learning to push the sounds together so that they can identify what the word is. So my hat is in the big, fat, bag, bag. So then these are sounding, the purpose of these texts are so they practice sounding out words with sounds that they know and pushing those sounds together so that they can decode by sounding out. So they have an important purpose in helping children learn to read, because they're learning that, getting their sounding skills, their decoding skills for sounding out words perfected. If you have any problems with doing the home reading with your children, the biggest tip that I can tell you is don't make it a fight. If it turns into arguments and things aren't working well, just read familiar texts. Texts that they've already know, even if they've read them 20 or 30 times, it doesn't matter, because you can build on that fluency. So the thing is, every time they read it, they're meant to be reading the way the author intended. Smooth reading, expressions in it, if there's an exclamation mark at the end of the sentence, they need to be calling it out. So, get them to put expression into their stories. The most important thing is to make reading a nice time with your child, not a fight time. So if it turns into not a nice experience for both of you, it's probably better just to stick with familiar reading. If you have any questions, please ring the school. We're happy to help. Thank you.